And we are recording.
Hello, you guys. Welcome back to our second episode. Thank you guys for coming back and tuning in again. I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for the response we got on our first episode. Neither of us really thought we were going to get that many views, and we really appreciate it,
It was a very nice surprise. Thank you so much.
I also do appreciate the responses we got back and the constructive criticism people gave us. It's really going to help us in the future, so thank you guys so much, and let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Before we begin today's topic, I would really like to preface that we aren't saying that if you do any of these things that we're talking about in this episode, that you're a bad person. I personally just think that when it comes to this topic, we can sit down and have a good talk and have constructive criticism on how this affects society as a whole, how it affects you and me and everybody else. So I just wanted to say, I don't want you guys to be upset. I'm trying to word this the best way I can as to not hurt any feelings because I don't want to do that. I don't think that you're a bad person if you do this, and I don't think that makes you any lesser because this does stem from insecurity.
Right, exactly. We're not trying to make anyone feel bad. We're just giving our opinions on this and how it affects society as a whole.
So today's topic doesn't need too much of an introduction. Today we want to talk about how things such as Photoshop and Facetune and Instagram filters really affect us as a society and what it has done to me and what it has done to other people. And I just really wanted to sit down and have a good conversation about this today.
So yeah, let's dive into this today. So Alexa was telling me about this app called Facetune, and I haven't heard about it. Now, I know of Photoshop, and the name of the app, Facetune, kind of does speak for itself, so I did a quick search on it, but she definitely knows a little more about it, so how about you explain it for us, Alexa?
So essentially, Facetune is an app that you can purchase from the App Store, whether that be on your Android device, on Google, on the App Store for iPhone. I believe it's $3.99, and it allows a user to edit small imperfections such as pimples or stray hairs, anything like that. But you can also do things such as like morph your body shape and kind of smooth out your skin and give yourself curves. There's a lot of things you can really do with the app.
That's very interesting, and from what I've seen here, I went to the website directly. They have Facetune 2, they have Facetune Video, that's just for Apple. They have FilterTune, also just for Apple, and they have an app called Scene, also just for Apple, but Facetune 2 is for both Apple and Android. Now, each of these have their own different functionalities. Facetune 2 is primarily just for photos. Facetune Video, self-explanatory, you can edit video on the fly. FilterTune, it says FilterTune is a new kind of filter app for photo editing and filter sharing, so it just adds filters to the other one. Same with Scene, it creates filters, it looks like for video and photos.
There are a lot of different apps that have come out. One of the ones you had mentioned was it Facetune Video?
Facetune Video, yep.
Yeah, one of the ones we'll be talking about today is called Snow. It's very similar in concept to that. I think a lot of people do use Snow for video, but you can also use it very similarly to how you use Facetune and Photoshop. Other methods of editing I'd like to mention today are Instagram filters and Snapchat filters because I think it can quickly spiral into a bigger issue.
I agree. I definitely feel like they can turn into an addiction of some sort to make people think that you look a certain way on social media versus real life. People have this sort of view of themselves on social media, and that's how they want to see themselves in real life. In reality, they can't because it kind of creates a unrealistic standard, I feel.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. So for those of you tuning in today who don't know what Snapchat filters are or they don't know what Instagram filters are, essentially it's just a filter you put over your face on Snapchat or Instagram, and it does what Facetune and Photoshop do without having to go in there and manually tweak your appearance. Some of these filters do things such as brighten your skin, they blur your skin, they can narrow your face, they can make your nose straight, they can make your eyes look bigger, they can give you a tan, they can really do so much. And with just the quick scan of your face, it's pretty quick. You don't even have to do any of the work yourself. You just got to click the image.
Exactly. Yep. You could even replace backgrounds too. They have different filters, magic filters. You can whiten your teeth with this. It's pretty crazy, the capabilities of it. Now, I'm very familiar with Photoshop, and I know that you can do these things in Photoshop. They're very manual, and you have to know how to do these things with color correction, contrast, hue and saturation, things like that. But when it comes to these sort of apps, it brings all this stuff to a more user-friendly and feasible way of actually doing this, of removing blemishes, like you said, making your eyes bigger or even smaller if you wanted, making your jawline more defined, any sort of things like that. And it really does create this, again, this standard that is just kind of unrealistic of how we are trying to make ourselves look almost more cartoonish in a way compared to real life.
I definitely agree with that. Like it does kind of create this unrealistic standard of what we look like. And in some cases, I don't really think that's a bad thing. Like if you're photoshopping your picture to just look kind of like otherworldly and look a little crazy and look a little wild, I think that's kind of good, you know what I mean? To an artistic sense.
Right. Absolutely. No, I definitely agree with that. I feel like there is definitely an artistic aspect to it. And of course, there is that fine line between art and just trying to fool somebody because maybe you're self conscious of the way you look, or you just want others to think you look better than you really do, in all honesty. Again, it's never a bad idea to use stuff like this, just make sure that you're not using it in a way that you're trying to fool people, because it can become an addiction very fast.
So, as a photographer, how do you feel about when people are taking selfies and they're doing these like mini Instagram photo shoots? Like, how do you feel about them editing their bodies and stuff like that? What do you think?
When it comes to editing their entire bodies, I feel like it starts to reach that fine line between art and fooling people. I know a lot of the time you'll see photos online that are really badly photoshopped. You'll see warp lines around their hips or their waistline, and that's just like, it's really terrible because they're just trying to fool people, and that can become a very bad thing. But again, as my experience as a photographer, I feel that the Facetune app or any other ways of actually distorting your body can be a bad thing. If you're using it solely as an art piece, then sure, why not? But when you're using it for social media and saying like, ooh, I look so good today, or anything like that, it can really become a problem in society as a whole.
I definitely agree. I think the reason a lot of people use these apps and stuff like that is because they are very self conscious. Honestly, I think the way that some of these apps work is it's like very malicious. So, just coming from my experience from growing up next to the development of these Snapchat filters, I think in 2015 is when they started. And then with the Instagram filters, and then people started like face tuning. I mean, people have always been photoshopping for the most part, just since it began, since they came out with Photoshop, they've been photoshopping photos in magazines. But I think that being like introduced to social media is where it kind of just exploded things for these people who have body issues. I think it has just created such an issue. But the reason I think that these Snapchat filters and these Instagram filters are very malicious is because you start out like using like the rainbow throw up filter.
Right,
You're like,
right.
oh, that's so cute. And you're like, oh, that kind of makes my eyes look big. And then you go on to the next one and it's you with nice tan skin and a little flower in your hair, and you're like, wow, like looks really good.
Mhm.
And then you keep using these filters because, this makes me feel good. I love how I look with this. Then when it comes time to take a photo without a filter, you're just like, whoa, I hate this. My nose is so big and my face is fat. Like, why do I look like this? So you just
Right.
continue to be like, oh, I'm just going to use a filter. And then I think that kind of leads into people using Facetune, and that leads into people even using like Photoshop and stuff like that.
Exactly. And it honestly leads to reliability on it too. I feel like that's just a dangerous thing.
I think it's a very slippery slope. Like, I think just coming from my personal experience as somebody who has had body issues and still struggles with them, seeing myself with filters when I would occasionally use them back in the day, it kind of hurt. So I just stopped. I could not continue using the filters. I knew that if I did, I was going to have a serious issue. It hurt to see myself as my quote unquote ideal self, you know?
Right, right.
With like a slimmer face and with bigger eyes and smooth skin. And sometimes they even put makeup on your face, which I think is kind of cool. But it really depends on the filter, you know?
Exactly. It is kind of neat. It is a really cool technology and very advanced. It is always improving. And like you said, it is a very slippery slope and it can be addictive for a lot of people.
One of the main things that I started noticing as I got older and as I started, you know, getting a little bit more into Photoshop and just kind of getting more experience with that, one of the big things for me was going on YouTube and seeing these makeup gurus in like 2016, 2018, around that time period. They all had gorgeous makeup. And I would sit there for hours and try to do my makeup, and it never looked like how they did it in the video. So I would always get so frustrated and think, oh, I'm so bad at makeup. You know, my skin has acne and there's bumps on it. And no matter what I do, my skin won't be smooth. And these colors, even though I'm using the same palette, aren't as vibrant, if you know what I mean.
Hmm. Exactly. And of course, me being a guy, I don't quite care about it all as much in terms of my skin. So there is that.
It's just definitely kind of frustrating for people who are really into makeup and stuff like that because it kind of sets that unattainable standard as to, oh, my makeup is not going to even look like this because they have no skin whatsoever in this photo. It's all just smoothed away and all of the colors are just brightened to the extreme. So the look is beautiful, but it's so hard to draw that line sometimes to like, oh, this is more for an artistic look versus this is what I'm trying to trick people into what I look like, or this is what I'm trying to trick myself into what I look like. So it mostly frustrates me when it's a tutorial. That's what kind of irritates me. Or when it's not just like, oh, look at this art piece I did on my face. Because, you know, then you can kind of go in there, edit out the little minor flaws, such as shine or oil on your face, you know.
Right.
But when it's a tutorial, it's frustrating because you're never going to look like that. And they know that because they edited the crap out of their photo.
Exactly. Yeah. And I definitely agree with you on that. And I also noticed a lot of people completely and exclusively uploading pictures on social media using just filters instead of sometimes using just the raw camera. And it kind of makes me sad a little bit because in all honesty, I miss these people. I miss how we look. Kendrick Lamar even had a video. He said he's tired of all the Photoshop and everything, and I definitely agree with that. And yeah, it just kind of amazes me how many people just really rely on this.
I've definitely noticed that as well. I have so many people that I know who only exclusively are uploading their profile pictures. Any image they upload is just completely photoshopped or facetuned or with the Snapchat filters. But I think that also kind of comes along with the fact that they don't feel like they're pretty, you know, as I was saying earlier. So when I notice these people doing this, it tends to be women, which I kind of understand because as a society, women are kind of told, like, oh, you have to look beautiful, you always have to be presentable and stuff like that. So if somebody just wants to make the occasional like Facebook post or they're just like updating on their like Instagram or their social media, they'll have this filter on their face and they'll be saying what they need to say without having to do their makeup, which I understand. And I also feel as though we have these influencers who are face tuning their bodies and photoshopping their bodies and using these filters, and that kind of falls back down on like the average person being like, hey, why aren't you slim thick? Why don't you have an hourglass waist? Why isn't your face smooth? And that just affects society as a whole. It's not just influencers trying to look good. That falls back down on everybody else and it makes them feel gross. They feel as though, oh, I have to do this or else I'm ugly, or I have to do this because people won't accept me, you know?
Right, right. And that's definitely not the case. And it's not the case that they're ugly. It's just it creates this impossible standard in society for us to try to reach. So like if you see someone on a dating app, right, and they've uploaded photos of themselves, they've probably ran it through some filters. And then you see them on there, then you see them in real life and it's just like, ooh, they're different. That's called catfishing, right?
I definitely agree, you know. So, with all these methods of editing a photo, I think a lot of people don't really think about how it affects them. I think they just see, oh, I'm gonna upload this picture really quick. They use the filter, they just slim their waist a little bit, they just make themselves a little bit tanner, and they don't really think about how that affects them.
Exactly.
So earlier, I was watching this video called Redefine Pretty, and in this video, they were running an experiment on women who had things such as severe acne, birthmarks on their face, things like that that society would deem as quote unquote unattractive, like just not conventionally attractive.
Okay.
And they showed them pictures of extremely beautiful women, like photoshopped, just look perfect. And it actually showed a trauma response in their brain, like showing that's causing them hurt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty wild to me. I didn't know it would actually do that. Do you think these people noticed it explicitly, or if they were just like hiding it, or if it was like an internal thing that they didn't quite realize?
I honestly think it really just depends on the person. Like sometimes just for certain people it can manifest in different ways, because I personally know going on Instagram sometimes I can't really go on there very long because of these people who do edit their photos a lot. And it makes me feel somehow inferior because I am not really that conventional beauty standard. I am like plus size, I'm
Right.
a big, tall woman.
Right.
So sometimes it can be very hurtful looking at these images. So I know in my experience, I get that just like pain kind of, and it just kind of hurts, like it's not really a jealousy. It's just like, why can't I look like that?
I definitely feel that. And as somebody who is a professional Photoshop editor, sometimes pretty much exclusively, I handle my best friend's Instagram feed. And so when I do photos of him, he always wants me to Photoshop out his acne. He always wants me to make his skin look better, make his eyebrows darker, fix up his hair, little frills or whatever. And sometimes he'll watch me do it. And as I'm cleaning up some of the acne, he'll be like, "All right, David, that's hurtful." And I just find that funny. It's like, dude, I don't want you to watch me do this because you want this in the first place, but you still tell me it's hurtful to watch me Photoshop out your acne. It's like, dude, just like keep your acne in the photo. Who cares? It's you. Like, honestly, it's still a good photo. It's just you also have acne. I feel like it also just helps create, I guess, a look that's more natural. If somebody has absolute zero acne, perfect skin, it feels too perfect, and it's just kind of unrealistic to me.
So that kind of leads me into the fact that sometimes people are going overboard with these filters because they just can't get enough, and they go overboard with all this editing because they feel like I'm not beautiful, and it turns into uncanny valley. Like it just feels unreal looking at these people. And in their heads, they've gotten to a point where they think that I look so beautiful right now. This is amazing. So they're getting to a point where they have all these edits on their photo and it's just not enough. They'll just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it.
And it gets worse and worse.
It does get worse. And I don't think there's really ever an end to it. People go to the extent of getting plastic surgery to look better. They get plastic surgery to look like their Snapchat filters, and they get surgery to look like their photoshopped versions.
Right.
And I feel like it can also be very harmful for people who have like body dysmorphia, because they could have an image in their head as to, oh, I look really gross, and then they'll Photoshop themselves to how they feel would look better. But even then, like I was saying earlier, that's just not ever going to be good enough. So I think it's a very dangerous tool that's out there, and it can get dangerous very quickly.
Dangerous is a great way to put it. And especially if you're posting these edited photos, these continuously more and more edited photos on like Instagram or just any social media, and they get more and more likes, it increases your self-confidence until you look in the mirror. And then it's just like that self-confidence just gets destroyed because it's like, I don't look like my Instagram photos. And then, like you said, they get plastic surgery or just any sort of thing to try to make themselves look cartoonish. To me, it looks cartoonish.
Personally, I think that a lot of people don't realize that when they use these editing techniques on their photos, there are people who can tell. I know for a fact, you can probably tell. I can definitely tell when people that I'm following on social media are photoshopping their photos. It's fairly easy to tell unless the person is a professional, which chances are they probably aren't.
Exactly.
But it's pretty easy to figure out, you know?
Right.
One thing I do want to mention is I don't have a problem with people who are open about their use of Photoshop and are open about their use of using these various tools to edit themselves. But I think that it does become a huge problem when people lie about it, when they make you believe, yes, this is how I look, this is me. And I don't think that's right.
Exactly. I completely agree with that. If they say, "Hey, this was heavily edited," or again, like you said, just very open about it, yeah, that's completely fair. And then people will know. And if you're trying to fool people, then it's just it's a bad thing. It's really terrible.
I feel very similar to that as I would with somebody who would get like lip fillers and they get Botox and they lie to people about the fact that they've got work done.
Rhinoplasty as well, that's a good one.
Exactly. And for influencers, I think that's kind of a big deal because I personally believe that if you are a quote unquote influencer, you are influencing those who follow you. So I think that it should be your job to be fairly honest with them and be like, yeah, this isn't natural. I did get surgery or I did Photoshop my face. I don't actually look like this. So you don't leave your audience thinking, oh, I'll never look like my favorite person because I'm ugly, I'm fat, I will never look like her because I'm not good enough.
I definitely agree. There was a quote from a man named Baz Luhrmann. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He said, "Don't be afraid of your body or what other people think of it. It's the greatest instrument you'll ever own."
Wow.
Use it in every way you can. And so I feel strongly about that. And to circle back to what you were saying, a very big example of real life usage of someone making themselves altered and rest in peace is Michael Jackson. He, many nose surgeries, many different just facial surgeries to make him look a way he definitely didn't look back in the 80s. 1980s Michael Jackson completely different from 2000s Michael Jackson. So I just definitely agree with you. It can be a very scary thing and it can turn into, again, an addiction.
I definitely agree. One of my main reasons for picking this topic for our episode today was because I don't feel like it's talked about enough because I think people are too scared to kind of criticize the fact that we have been using these filters for so long and we have been doing these slight or sometimes even major edits on these photos for so long. They just think, oh, well, that's just how it is, you know? And people aren't really thinking about how that links back to our mental health, which my mental health is very important to me. So I think that criticizing things like this, which can potentially harm your mental health depending on just how vulnerable you are as a person, which I know I am, it's really important to talk about. And I think that this discussion today has kind of helped me, at least with your perspective. I've really appreciated that, being able to talk to you about it and be open with my insecurities because I'm trying to be better, but I mean, there are months that I will not go on Instagram because it hurts. It hurts to see these people, living their best lives and looking amazing and being in Hawaii and vacationing and doing whatever. And I'm here
Right.
doing me.
Yes, and it's very hard to overcome these self-consciouses and you just got to know, like everyone out there, you guys are beautiful just the way you are. You don't need filters to look amazing. You really don't. And I encourage you, anyone who's watching this, if you're active on social media, go post a picture of yourself just as you are, no filter, just raw photo. Just go do it. Honestly, go for it.
Honestly, I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but I think it's a very similar sentiment. It took me years to be able to go in public or post photos on social media without makeup because it kind of gives you a very similar effect to having a filter, which we may or may not talk about in a different episode. But I think that really having an introspective look into how these filters affect you and how what you think might be minor edits really affect you, because you really aren't ugly. I promise. I promise if you are one of those people who edits every single one of their photos or uses a Snapchat or Instagram filter in every single one of your photos, I promise you're not ugly. I promise you, when you upload that picture of you with no filter on, no one would even think about it. They're just like, oh, she's pretty or he's hot, you know?
Exactly. I absolutely agree with that.
It's like, they're cute.
But yeah, if you happen to be on Instagram or any other social media where you see pictures of people that are like quote unquote perfect, there's little things you can definitely look for. And of course, as me being a professional photo editor, I can definitely see some of these little edits. And some people are actually pretty good at making it unnoticeable, but others not so much, right? You can look for little mess ups. Again, if somebody has like a broad hips or like and like really narrow waist and stuff, you can look to see if the background is distorted, or you can see if there's like little smudges on their face. Maybe they didn't perfectly Photoshop out any acne, or just little details like that you can really look out for. And if you feel self-conscious in life, right, just take a look at some of these photos, and I promise you, you can probably find some of these little mess ups. Or if someone's skin looks a little too smooth, it looks a little blurry, they definitely used a filter, right? And you could definitely feel better about yourself because of this if you are self-conscious, because you know that their photos are fake, and so they're probably just as self-conscious, and that's why they're using filters.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. And I think we should start going from the mindset of, oh, this person is so much more attractive to me and they're so gorgeous and everything, to, wow, this person's gorgeous, I'm gorgeous too. I just think it's important to value yourself, to make sure that you know that you aren't any less attractive because another person is gorgeous or attractive as well in your eyes. You know, you don't have to tear your self-confidence down because you see this person who doesn't look like you that you think is gorgeous, because I promise you there are other people out here who think you are gorgeous as well. So
Absolutely. But yeah, anyway, let's take a look at some of these photos. We have some pulled up here. We'll take a look, see which ones are photoshopped and any little details we can spot in them. So let's take a look.
okay, today we're going to be going on the infamous Instagram reality on Reddit. So in this image we have a woman sitting in front of her staircase, and her face doesn't even look like it belongs on the body she's on. It looks like a completely different person.
It's a completely different skin tone. Her face almost looks flat. Is that just a Photoshop or like a filter?
I don't know. Hold on. It looks like a filter.
Take a look at those stairs. Some of those lines don't look quite straight. I don't know if they've actually done anything to the hair, or if they've added hair or subtracted hair. This is kind of one of those photos that is so photoshopped, it's almost hard to say what has been done exactly, because there's so many things that could be composited onto it or just taken out of it. The background itself could even be fake. We don't know.
Exactly. Like, I don't know why she would choose to be behind some debatably clean stairs, but
Exactly, yeah. So what we're looking at here is probably three, I guess, friends that are standing on a beach, and this almost looks like a horror movie to me. This is terrifying. Their faces are so blurred out to try to, I guess, hide blemishes or any pores or whatever. They just look like zombies. The eyes are scary. And then what's going on with her shoulder over on the right side there?
that actually kind of looks like a shoulder pad. But they also have absolutely no skin texture either.
It's terrifying. I can't even see their noses, and their teeth have been edited to be super white, and it's just like, it kind of looks like Jeff the Killer. Do you ever see that from Creepypasta?
Yes.
That's what they kind of look like.
They kind of do look like that because you can't even see their nose. So in this photo, we have a good example of how people are using filters for their photos. We have just this woman, and she honestly is gorgeous without the filters. It shows two photos of her without the filters, and then it shows her with the filters. With the filter, she looks 10.
She really does.
And what this filter does is it really just smooths out her face, kind of gives it a more narrow chin, a smaller chin, but gives her really chubby cheeks. So very childlike, and it gives her a hint of blush.
I was just about to mention, yeah.
It looks very uncanny valley.
Yeah. Her eyes also look a little bit bigger than in those other photos as well.
Absolutely. And as I just said, she is gorgeous without these filters. Like, she looks really good. So it's kind of sad.
Honestly, it really is.
So in the last photo we're going to be looking at today, there is a couple, and I see this so much on my social media. They'll do the girl's face, but they won't do the guy's face, so it looks odd. So here we have a couple just taking a selfie, and the guy looks perfectly fine, but then when you look at the girl, she's obviously very edited. She smoothed out her skin, put a little bit of blush on, a little bit of eyeshadow. And compared to him, she looks creepy.
Yeah, her face looks very flat, and the lighting is also different. I would also argue that he is edited. If you look again between his nose and upper lip, there's some blurriness going on. It looks like his teeth have been whitened to me. His forehead looks a little too smooth. Something about it just doesn't look right to me. But she is definitely edited more so than him.
I believe that she might have taken this photo with like an Instagram or Snapchat filter, but then went into Facetune and edited her features.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, he has those initial features that the filter would do, such as like the blurred skin, and you can see that this is kind of like a soft white color almost. So it kind of makes his teeth look brighter. So that filter is probably initially what happened, and I think she probably went in after that and did more Facetune.
Exactly. And even her eye color definitely looks like one of those filters that changes the iris color.
Yeah. So on that note, speaking of Facetune, David and I are going to try something a little bit different today. We're going to try something fun, and we're going to Photoshop ourselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit one of our photos and try to make ourselves look as good as possible to our ideal standards and see who can make a more convincing photo.
Okay. Do you know what application we're using today?
I think we just use any source that we want that we think will look good.
Okay.
The trick is we have to try to make it look like we haven't Photoshopped it or edited it, I should say.
Absolutely.
It's on.
Let's do it.
Okay, so at the end of our episode, if you're watching the video version, it'll be at the end of the video. But for those of you who are listeners on our podcast, whether that be Spotify or any other platform, you can go check out any of our various social medias. We'll have it posted there, and you guys can see the results.
All right, so now we're moving on to our segment part, the last part of our episode. So we did get some responses. We're just going to read one today. So if you're still interested, we are still taking responses. Just go ahead and slap on over to the link tree. Link will be in the description or bio or wherever you're listening. We will have it on there. It's also on our social medias. Go ahead and slap over to the link tree and then click advice and go ahead and fill out that form for us, and we can read some of your responses. So today's response states, my coworker keeps intervening in my job. We have different jobs and she still tries to tell me I'm doing mine wrong when I'm not. How can I get her to stop overstepping her boundaries?
Oh my goodness. I have so much to say about this.
Ooh, go for it.
So, I have quite a few years under my belt of working in customer service, and let me tell you, there are a lot of people who are working above their pay grade. You have those coworkers who are just constantly on you, despite you making the same exact amount of money as they are. They're just trying to treat you like they're your manager, even though they aren't. And I totally get how frustrating that is, and I've experienced that multiple times.
Okay, so is it like a scenario where it's like they care about their job too much for how much money they make? Is that kind of one of those situations? Because I personally have not experienced this in the workforce, but I have experienced this in my personal life.
So it can stem from that. And I mean, putting a lot of effort into your job is not bad, but it kind of takes it to that next level when you are telling other people who apparently they have a different job, they're still telling them what they're doing is wrong despite not even working the same position.
Oh, got you.
It kind of just takes it to a more like disrespectful level than a manager being like, hey, you need to do this right, you need to do it like this.
Okay.
It's kind of like somebody treating you as though you're stupid because this is your job.
Exactly. Okay.
You know what you're doing.
So I definitely have experiences in my personal life, but not quite in the work field. Would you like to provide some examples on your side?
So, without giving too much away, I did work at one place where I was still fairly new, but I had done this job before. Definitely not my first rodeo there, but this person kept trying to tell me what to do. And I knew what I was doing, and this person would. They'd be very overbearing, constantly coming over to where I was, even sometimes in front of customers, trying to tell me what I was doing was wrong. And I think sometimes, even though they might be doing it out of concern, like, oh, you're bringing this coupon in wrong, you just have to do it this way. Sometimes if a customer sees that, it's kind of unprofessional and it makes you just seem like you don't know what you're doing, despite that not being true.
I definitely feel that.
So, what are some personal experiences you have with that?
Some personal experiences I have with that is actually, no shame, my best friend has done this to me. Anytime we collaborate on videos, let's say for instance, it's a video idea I have and I needed his help on it, he will often take over in sort of like a directorial sense in a way that he's completely changing my vision to what he wants. And I feel like it's just kind of overstepping the boundaries on my end. And I tell him like, hey, this isn't what I want. But he's like, no, what you want is, uh, I guess he doesn't explicitly say it's stupid. It's just kind of, it definitely feels like he's saying it that way. But it just kind of seems like, hey, I had this vision. Now you're telling me you don't want to do my vision, even though I reached out to you for your help on this. It just kind of feels disrespectful sometimes. But I definitely feel you on that. So how would you recommend that these people can stop overstepping their boundaries in the workplace?
Personally, what I would do is if you feel comfortable enough just going up to them and having the confidence to say, hey, I know that we do work separate jobs, and I guess it really depends on if the job they're doing is something they've like done before or whatever, or if they have experience. But still, that boundary is still there where they shouldn't be telling you how to do your job. Just be like, hey, I appreciate that you're trying to help me, but I am working at this position. I've been doing it for however long. I know how to do my job, and I appreciate you trying to help me. But unless I ask you for help, I would really appreciate if you didn't give me this unwanted advice.
That's definitely fair. I definitely feel that. Do you feel like that would work in every scenario and every job?
I feel sometimes if you kind of have a hostile relationship with your coworker, which at the experience I was explaining, I kind of had a hostile relationship with this person. Not in the sense that we didn't necessarily have it out for each other or anything, but this person was just kind of rude, would do it to everybody, but especially me, and was just not a very pleasant person. If it gets to that point, just don't feel bad about being a quote unquote snitch. Just go to your supervisor and be like, hey, this person's kind of making me feel uncomfortable, I'm just trying to do my job and I feel as though they're making me feel inferior and stupid that I don't know how to do my job and they're bossing me around even though they're not my manager.
Exactly. Okay.
You are.
Right. Okay. I definitely feel that. And I guess in a personal sense, it's not necessarily the same way. What I would do with my best friend when I felt like he was overstepping his boundaries is personally, I would just kind of set him aside and be like, hey, I don't like this idea. Can we please go with mine? And sometimes he's kind of stubborn and wants to go with more of his idea, but generally we will meet a common ground. As long as I keep that communication line open, we can meet a common ground. And that's, we're best friends. We can do that. We always butt heads. We're always at each other's throat. A lot of people think we're like an old married couple just because we're always arguing. But we do generally meet a common ground and we get stuff done. We really do. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but it does get done in the end.
Compromise is always good because if it's just very one-sided, if the one person is just continuing to criticize and critique you and it's just very one-sided and unwanted, it kind of starts to affect your job performance, I'd say. It kind of just affects how you go about doing things. So I would try to squash that very quickly, because if this coworker sees, oh, well, they're not stopping me from coming over and telling them that they're doing their job incorrectly, then they're just going to think that's okay, and they're going to keep crossing those boundaries, and it's just going to get worse. So personally, I would address it to their face, and then if they start to get hostile or if they get aggressive, just stop and go to your manager and explain it and let them sort it out, because at the end of the day, it's not your job.
Exactly.
It's their job to manage how their employees are working.
I definitely feel that.
So all you can really do is just try to go to them or go to your manager.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's some great advice.
Mm-hmm.
And also, thank you for the response. That was an awesome question. Keep them coming.
Yes, I loved that. So, as David said, if you guys have any more requests for advice, our link should always be open unless stated otherwise. And we would really appreciate it if you guys subscribe to us on YouTube and you went to our various social medias and added us.
That would be awesome.
Yes. So if you want to keep updated with all of the little projects we'll be doing and just have any discussions with us, go ahead and follow our Facebook group called SunniDaze After Hours. And just fill out the quick survey. We'll accept you and start having fun, start some discourse.
Absolutely. We would love to see you there. Thank you so much for watching and or listening, and we will catch you next time.
And remember, guys, stay sunny.
Stay sunny.